right, so now that I made it into Texas, which I'm out of New Mexico now, I'm pretty happy about that. There was some beautiful stuff about New Mexico, like White Sands and Roswell and the Carlsbad Caverns area, going to the bottomless lake. So there's a lot of beauty in New Mexico, but it's very dry. It's very brown. So I was looking for something a little bit more picturesque landscape that was like all over the place, and New Mexico just didn't quite have it. So with that being said, as soon as I crossed into Texas, I noticed, it's very similar to New Mexico. Now, I'm just being silly. I know that that the different types of environments don't stop at the border, but it just it gave me a little bit of a grasp of reality. And that, I know I talk about this a lot, but I go back to when, during the early settler days, like that just fascinates me. It really fascinates me how people would make their way west or make their way north on wagon train, and the terrain that they just had to overcome. I mean, they were in some of these places for months. And if you think about it, we have come so far just in the past 200 years. Amazing progress here in the United States just over the past 200 years. We went from wagon trains taking weeks or even months to go, say, maybe 100 miles, to being able to go 100 miles in a couple of hours or less, depending on how fast you drive. With a trailer, I don't drive very fast. But it really kind of puts it into focus, how far we've come and how good we have it. I have it just so amazingly good because I get to travel. I get to see the United States. And if you tried to do this 200 years ago, it would take you years to do something that we can do in an entire, just in 1 year, in 1 month. It would take them years to do. And most of the time, obviously, they didn't go very far away from their home, so they didn't really travel. Once they got to where they were going, they stayed there because that was how they survived. They had to grow their crops. They had to live. They had to raise children. The children had to go to school. And so travel was really not a thing of luxury or leisure back then. It was more of a necessity. So if you wanted to see some other town or a fort or other terrain, you had to pick up your entire house and go. You couldn't just take off with a horse and buggy and, go check out the world or the United States. It just didn't work that way. So it was more out of necessity than anything else. So I really enjoyed seeing the transition between New Mexico and Texas. And I mean, it just super cool, just super cool. I had a great time in New Mexico. Hopefully you enjoyed that video as much as I did making that video, because it was just amazing. But in this video, I'm going to get to show you some really cool stuff like the Sonora Caverns, down in Houston, Galveston, up into Frisco, Texas. So there's really cool landscape. Magnolia Beach. I cannot wait to share that one with you because it's such a gorgeous place. And all of these places that I stayed are relatively inexpensive, $20, $30, maybe $40 a night, we're in April. And so it was relatively inexpensive to be staying in most of these places. And if you do it right, you can boondock and not pay anything, or you can stay at a Cracker Barrel or Cabela's, something like that, where you can stay for a night, maybe two, for free. I wouldn't push your luck too much on that one, but so I'm going to get to show you all of that cool landscape around Texas, and I'm just thrilled to do it. So let's get into it right now. All right, so my very first stop was Pecos, Texas. Now, Pecos, I'll give you a little history on Pecos. Pecos is known, at least around these parts, as being the very first location of the very first rodeo. Did I say that right? It was the location of the very first rodeo. At least that's what they say. Now, I did a little bit of research on this, and there are a number of places that say we are the very first rodeo. So who knows what really constitutes what a rodeo really means, whether it's, they were just bull riding or they're handing out belt buckles or whatever they were doing. Pecos is one of those places that it touts, they tout that they are the first ever rodeo. However, I did some research, and July 4th of 1883, Pecos held an actual rodeo with bronco busting, bronco riding, or bronco, whatever they call that. And then they did some cattle roping, but that's really all they did. Now rodeos today have grown, substantially. Now they're doing barrel racing and team calf roping and bull riding. All this stuff didn't actually come into play until like in the 60s. So the very first rodeo was long before its time. Now, Pecos does say that they are the very first rodeo, but I did some research and I found that back in 1869, so this was 14 years before the first rodeo in Pecos, Texas, there was two groups of cattle ranchers up in Wyoming, in Deer Springs, Colorado, and they wanted to have a contest between the two ranching groups. So two totally different ranching groups. One of them said they were the best. The other one said they were the best. So they got together and they had a little competition, mostly around bronco riding, to see who could stay on the horse the longest. And that's what they did back then. They would spend their days bouncing up and down on a horse, riding this thing to try and break them. And so it was pretty interesting to see that these two groups came together to see who could say that they were the best at bronco riding and calf roping. And so I guess if you say that is a rodeo, then that would be the very first rodeo, Deer Springs, Colorado. But I'm not going to take that away from Pecos, because Pecos says that they are the very first rodeo in 1883. So we're going to give it to them. I had a good time in Pecos, but I really didn't do a whole lot there. I just stayed at this one small RV park called the Trey Park Escapees Trailer Park. Really, it was mostly a dirt parking lot or a gravel parking lot, but it was a great place to stop. It was very inexpensive. And I ended up joining the group called the Escapees, which is they're kind of like a KOA, not nearly as big, obviously, but they're kind of like a KOA where they have exclusive member benefits where you can go and stay at a number of their escapee sponsored parks. They have people that work and stay at each of these parks for like a month before they move on to the next one. And that's how they manage their parks. So really cool there. I'll leave some information down below about the Trey Park Escapees RV Park so that you can get a good idea, if you're ever in Pecos, of where to stay. Super easy in and out. They had laundry facilities. They had Wi-Fi. I'm always, pretty leery about campground Wi-Fi because it's usually not that great. They might have a good connection, but when everybody's on it, it's sucking up the bandwidth and it slows things down. So I ended up just using my PepWave router, which I absolutely love. This thing is fantastic. This is the way to go, unless you want to go Starlink. If you're a big, Elon Musk fan, which I am, so I may end up in a future video showing you what Starlink looks like, but I'm just kind of waiting until the dust settles on that one because it's still fairly new. A lot of people put in pre-orders like last year, maybe even year before that, when they knew that Starlink was coming out, and they are just now getting their devices, their satellite routers. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be cool. I definitely want to try out Starlink. And then Elon Musk is coming out with a new cell phone this year. So what is that going to look like? Pretty cool stuff. So that was it for Pecos. Had a great time there. I didn't really do a whole lot there. It's close to everything. There's a Walmart's down the road, Best Buy, whatever you need for your RV. There's plenty of RV centers around. You just got to look around and see what you can find. All right. So my second stop, Sonora, Texas. Yeehaw! There's some bitterness about Sonora, and then there's some greatness about Sonora. I don't know if I really explained that very well, but I'll cover the bitterness first. I have had nothing but problems with UPS, and I'm not going to bag on UPS. It's just where I was running into some issues with UPS. And the reason I tell you this is because when you are traveling around and you need to get a package to wherever you are, and you know it's coming UPS, you have to be a little bit diligent in making sure that the package makes it to you. Oftentimes, and I found this out, I had to actually drive an hour to go pick up my package, and my package was my drone. I really, really, really wanted my drone because I wanted to do, I wanted to start practicing, get some drone footage, and just really, up level my videos, get some great, viewpoints and video footage. So I had to drive an hour just to go pick up my drone because the distribution center where UPS was, it was an hour away. And the driver only had, 2 or 3 packages that day, and he didn't want to make the drive down to Sonora to deliver those packages. But I knew that if I didn't go pick it up, I would never see this thing, that it would get sent back. Now, the manufacturer kind of messed up. When I was in Roswell, I had my drone shipped to me, and they shipped everything but the drone. They shipped the case. They shipped all the little, the extra parts, everything except for the drone. So I was a little bit upset. I messaged them. They said, we forgot to send it. How do you forget to send $1,000 drone? That just, I don't understand that part, but things do happen. So they ended up sending it to Roswell, and I tried to intercept it before it got there, and I did, and they changed the packing or the the shipping label. And when it arrived in Sonora, I was only going to be there for 2 more days. My previous experience in Tucson with UPS was a freaking nightmare, and so I didn't want to go through that again. So I decided that I was just going to go pick it up. I didn't care. I'll drive 2 hours. I'll see some countryside. I've been driving a lot. Not a big deal. But I was a little miffed that UPS didn't follow through with their commitment to deliver my package to where I was at. So be it as it may, I got my drone. I'm very careful about when I'm ordering stuff now. Amazon never had a problem. They are on top of it. UPS, a little frustrating at times, but I got to tell you, my very, very good friend back in Temecula, California, his name is Chris. He's a UPS driver. He is just absolutely phenomenal. This guy is freaking awesome. And, it's how many people actually make friends with their UPS drivers and really, establish a connection and a relationship with them that their family, that they're about to have a baby, when they have a baby because they're talking to you and you have this awesome connection and relationship with them. And I know that there are plenty of drivers out there that are new because of the pandemic. So they're trying to figure themselves out, whatever. There are good people out there. And then there are people out there that are super lazy and don't want to go the extra mile, don't want to take care of their customers, and you're going to run into it with anything. I'm not saying that UPS is like this. I'm saying that every place is like this. And I just happen to use UPS as an example because I had a rough time with them, but everything's good. I'm good. I'm safe. My trailer's intact. No tornadoes hit. So I'm perfectly fine. All right. So let me give you a little bit of a story about Sonora, Texas. So the Sonora, Texas used to be a very, very, very small mining community and farming. And where the caverns come in is because back in, I'm trying to remember, it was back in the 1900s, the early 1900s, 1922. It was back in 1922 when a farmer was chasing his dog because a dog was chasing a raccoon, and the raccoon went down into a hole and the dog went right behind him. And so the farmer saw where he had went in. So he was walking around, he was looking for his dog. He peeked his head inside the hole with a candle, and he was able to see that there were passageways in there. And he's like, oh, okay, this is super interesting. I need to go check this out. So what he ended up doing was he crawled down into that small little hole because he saw where the dog had disappeared. And he ended up crawling down into the hole and actually crawling through these little passageways to see what was down there. He got about 500 feet away from the entrance of the hole, down. I don't know what the level of degree of decline was that he went down into, but about 500 feet, or so the story says, he came upon this huge pit. So now he could stand up and he could actually walk around the rim of the pit and he could see down into it. Now it's super dark down there, so I'm not sure how far he could see, but it was estimated that the pit was about 50 feet. And so he left that, he crawled back out, went back to town, was telling all of his buddies. They went down there and started checking it out, and they started mapping out what it looked like. And then from there, really, the story just kind of runs dry. There's not a whole lot between 1922 and about 1956 when another cave explorer from Oklahoma found the cave, or heard about it and found it, and then started actually, doing some discovery work. He was mapping it out and really, doing some research about the cave, and then taking that back and telling people about how awesome it was. As you know, some people might know the Sonoran Caverns to be known for its butterfly formation inside of the cavern. And what that is how stalactites and stalagmites and they grow and all that water and calcium and mineral buildup. Well, there was a formation on one of the cavern walls that formed the shape of a butterfly. So that's really cool. The not so cool part is back in 2006, November of 2006, I believe it was, someone was in a tour in there and actually broke off one of the wings of the butterfly. So it doesn't look like a butterfly anymore, but that's how it got its name, the Butterfly Cavern. So they broke it off and they hid it inside of their coat or jacket or, pants, whatever, took it out, and then they left with it. They later discovered that this had been broken off. So later on that day, they tracked the guy down. And from what I understand, from what the guide was telling me, they actually arrested the guy and made him pay a fine. However, if you go onto the Caverns of Sonora website, you're going to see on there that that there's still a $20,000 reward for the missing artifact, for the missing piece of the butterfly wing. And so I don't know. I haven't been able to confirm it, but hey, if you know something, if you know that someone went in there in 2006 and broke off a piece of the cavern and they came out with it, then, call the Caverns of Sonora and let them know where they can find that person. $20,000 could be in your future. So the Caverns of Sonora, let me talk a little bit about this. It was absolutely breathtaking to be underground in that area to see just hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of history right there in front of me. And I was walking through the caverns. I remember thinking to myself how amazing it would have been to discover this back in 1922 or even in 1956. How amazing it would have been to really be one of the original cave explorers that was mapping out this entire thing and then going back and telling people about it. It was absolutely magical. And there were parts of the cavern where the light that they had inside of there, it bounced off of these, I don't know if it was a mineral or a metal or a crystal, but it just sparkled. It was just so gorgeous. You just don't see this kind of stuff everywhere. It was amazing. And I got to tour the whole thing. Now, when I say the whole thing, I mean everything that they allow the tourists to do. What's really neat about this is back in 1956, when this cave explorer found this, he had mapped out some of the cave, and he noticed that there was evidence of human tampering. In other words, humans were in there breaking chunks off of the stalactites and stalagmites, and they were taking it back to town, probably looking to see if they could find some gold in it. I'm guessing when you get something like that, obviously you don't want to be messing around and breaking stuff off. But back then, I can imagine that they just wanted to see if there was gold inside of those those stalactites and stalagmites. That would be incredible. Maybe some of them got rich off of it, I don't know. But since 1956, this cave explorer from Oklahoma, and I'm trying to remember his name because it's pretty significant, but for whatever reason, it's just not coming to me. Anyway, he bought the rights to develop the cave, which means to develop it in a way that he could take tour groups through there and show people the natural beauty. So that's exactly what they did. And in 1960 is when the cave actually opened up for the public so that they could pay to go through a guided tour and see the caves. Absolutely incredible. I highly recommend it. If you're in Sonora, Texas, go see the Caverns of Sonora, otherwise known as the Butterfly Caverns. And what was the way that I found out about this was a friend of mine, Dahlia. She was the one that told me about it. She says, "Oh, you got to go to the Butterfly Caverns." And I'm saying, "Well, what is the Butterfly Caverns? Is it the same thing as the Caverns of Sonora?" We weren't sure at the time until I started doing a little bit more research, but she said, "You've got to go see it. You got to go see it." And I'm so glad I did. So Dahlia, thank you so much for recommending it. It was absolutely priceless. After I spent a few days in Sonora, I stayed at this place called the Stadium RV Park. The guy that runs the place, super cool guy. His name is Mike. Really, really awesome. He is cash only though, but he does have full hookups. And so I think it was like $30 a night. So it wasn't really that expensive. $30 a night for full hookups, have a place to stay, and it was a covered roof over the top of my RV. So if there was any hail or anything like that, I would have been protected. And so Mike was just an absolute gentleman, really awesome guy. I pulled in, he said, "Hey, I know you're here for 4 days. Just come over and pay me whenever you can." Absolutely. Yeah. And I did. I had to go out in town a couple of days later, and he just wasn't even worried about the money. He just wanted to make sure that I was taken care of. And for that, I mean, you just absolutely cannot replace that level of customer service and that level of caring for people. I love it. It's just awesome. Texas has just been amazing for me because people have been so nice. And so I will always remember Texas. Now, I was on my way. So I packed up one morning, my last day. I packed up everything. I got on the road, and about, I want to say, a mile down the road, heading towards the highway, I got a light on my truck, a tire light. The front left tire had gone down to 20 pounds, 20 psi, and it stayed there. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just go and just air it up. I don't know, maybe someone was messing around with me. So I went and I aired it up, and then I got in my truck. I didn't hear any hissing sound. I didn't hear any, and all of a sudden it goes down to 20 again. I was like, okay, what is going on? So I get closer to the highway, and I found a Love's truck stop where they also have a tire shop there. So I went and I talked to one of the guys in there, and unfortunately he wasn't able to help me, because they only work on large semi truck tires. They didn't have the equipment to be able to do a tire for my pickup truck. And so one of the guys said, hey, you know, if you can get a hold of, and this is on a Sunday, if you can get a hold of Leo, then maybe he'll come in and repair it for me. I was like, oh, okay. I did see a Leo's tire shop, but it was closed. It was on a Sunday. So I called the phone number. Leo answered, and I said, hey man, I am in dire straits here. I have to get out of Sonora and head down south, towards San Antonio, but I have a tire that keeps going low on me. It stops at 20 psi, and then it doesn't go any further. He said, okay, well, meet me down at the shop in 20 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I knew the guy was closed, but he still answered the phone. He still came in, and he only charged me $38 to repair my tire. Now, I gave him a lot more than that just because it was his day off. His time is worth something. When you take a day off and people call you and they need you and you still show up, that says something about you. If you blow them off and say, I'm sorry, this is my day off, even though they need you, that says something about you. So I would encourage everybody that if someone is in need of help, to make sure that you put yourself out there. Let them know that you care about them. So now I normally would like to get a picture with the people around me that helped me, but unfortunately Leo didn't really want to take a picture. I don't know, felt a little bit nervous, but I got my tire repaired and I was on the road again. So I managed to get out of Sonora the day that I was supposed to get out of Sonora. So for more information about the park that I stayed in, the Stadium RV Park, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description so that you guys can check it out. If you're ever in Sonora, Texas, and you want to go see those awesome, incredible caverns, then definitely stay at Stadium RV Park. You won't be sorry. It's a nice, quiet, secluded area. Okay, so my third stop, which was for a very, very short period of time, was at this place called Alsatian RV Resort.
Giddy up now, come on, yeah.
I was really super jazzed about getting down to Magnolia Beach, but it was still like 8 hours away from Sonora. So I wanted to have a stop in between. I generally don't like to drive more than about 3, maybe 4 hours tops. I will go 7 hours if I absolutely need to, but I'm on a journey. I want to see different places. So I thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity. Alsatian is just outside of San Antonio, about 30 minutes. And I only stayed there for 3 days just to kind of get some work done, kind of get myself recollected, rest a little bit before I started making the trip down to Magnolia Beach. And I knew what I was getting into when I went down to Magnolia Beach because it is dry camping. So I wanted to stop. And on the last day at Alsatian, I wanted to make sure that I filled up my freshwater tank. All my black tank and my gray tanks were emptied. So I was ready to go. And I also wanted to double check my generator. So I powered up my generator, make sure it was working, changed the oil, just got myself to a point where I knew that I was comfortable dry camping in this camper, because I still had work to do. I still wanted to reach out to my clients. I still needed to work on videos. So there was a number of tasks or things that I still needed to do that I still wanted to do. But what I ended up doing at Magnolia Beach is like absolutely nothing except for practicing flying my drone. That was the highlight of Magnolia Beach. But so I left Alsatian, headed down to Magnolia Beach. I was really not aware of what I was getting myself into, and it was amazing. Magnolia Beach is just absolutely gorgeous. You just back right up to the water, and I mean, you have the waves coming in. Now, they're not big waves. They're not like you go to the West Coast or the East Coast, these giant waves. You're right there in the Gulf. But what was incredible about it was you heard these waves at night. I would open up my windows and I would just hear the waves coming in. Just nice, easy, calming waves. It felt so good. So I cracked open a beer, stuck some lime in my beer, and I just had a good time. I just really relaxed. And I parked a little ways away from my next door neighbor, but not so far that, if we didn't, yell a little bit, we didn't have to yell to talk to each other. So that was very, very pleasant. And you'll find that when you're out here on the road, the people are very, very kind, especially in the RV parks. I just spent probably half an hour chit-chatting with a fellow Marine who was in Vietnam, and another guy that's traveling on his own from Wisconsin. So you meet people all over the place, and it's such an incredible experience. I would absolutely not trade it for anything. So let me get into Magnolia Beach. This was my fourth stop through Texas. I follow several RV groups, and this was one of the highly recommended places to visit, and I see why now. Because the beaches were gorgeous, the solitude, the serenity. I wasn't that far away from a Walmart. I think it took me 20 minutes to get to the local Walmart, and it was just the perfect place to go. Very, very calming, very, very relaxing. The first day it was super windy, so I gotta say that it was super freaking windy. My trailer was rocking and rolling, and it was just me in there. So it wasn't because of, me, it was because that wind was just absolutely going nuts. It truly is just this amazing place to go. And if you're boondocking, because there's no hookups right there, if you just make sure you got plenty of water, your tanks are empty so that you can stay as long as you possibly can without having to leave to go dump your tanks or get fresh water. But Magnolia Beach was just so peaceful and serene, and it just brought a sense of calmness to me that I had been looking for even the entire trip. Because the entire trip has been all about planning where I'm going to go next, had to set up reservations, all the stuff that goes into trip planning, right? But Magnolia Beach just was just absolutely amazing, and I'm definitely going to go back there again someday. Looking forward to that.
Man, I slept so good last night. Just listening to the peaceful motion of the waves. It just slept so good. So this is my view to wake up to this morning. It's my trailer right there. So peaceful, so beautiful out here. So I got the sun getting ready to come up over the horizon. I got the moon hanging out up there. You got to come to Magnolia Beach. This place is gorgeous. So I was thinking this morning, what should I make for breakfast? And then I thought, how about some Baby Yoda shaped waffles? That's my Baby Yoda waffle maker that my kids got me for Christmas last year. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah.
We can stay up late, swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles.
So Houston was my next stop, and I was really, really excited about this one because I was going to get to meet up with some friends that I had only met online, either through like a Zoom coaching program or, of all things, a computer game on your mobile phone. I know, kind of bizarre, but you meet people in the darndest places, and when you create connections with people, you create these lifelong connections with people, and then you impact their lives forever. So wherever you can meet people is wherever you can meet people. So I pulled into Kemah, which is just outside of Houston. So I didn't actually stay in Houston proper. I just stayed outside of Houston near the South Shore Marina. I got to this place called the Marina Bay RV Resort. It was really, really nice. I really enjoyed my stay there, even though I wasn't even there hardly at all. I actually, spent most of my time out and about with friends. So let me tell you first about Mark Reynolds. This guy is absolutely amazing. The first day that I met him was almost 2 years ago, when I was coaching for Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins. He had purchased, a set of the workshops. He had purchased the program, which is 3 workshops over 3 days, over 3 months. And it was really cool because when I had got in there and I got all of my students, Mark was one of them, and his business partner, Nick. And I could tell that these guys were just absolutely going to crush it in business because they just had that mindset. They had that passion, that desire to really want to take their lives to a whole different level. And so my time with Nick and Mark was just absolutely priceless because I didn't know that it would lead up to where I am today. And that was meeting up with Mark for the very first time. We had kept in contact over the past for the past year, just kind of sporadically. And he kept saying, "Hey Todd, when you come down to Houston, let me know, and we'll go for a boat ride or a sailboat ride." And so I was like, yeah, no, that sounds great. Lo and behold, in January of this year, when I started my Freedom Tour, that went right up to the top of my bucket list, or to the top of my list of things to do. And I really wanted to just hang out with Mark and go boating with him and just feel that lifestyle. Man, I didn't know what I was really into. I'd never lived that lifestyle before. I'd always been in a home and, working or running my business. But to be on the water in flip-flops, t-shirt, shorts, the sun just coming down, it just, oh my gosh, it felt so good. Needless to say, I had mentioned this, but I really didn't spend a lot of time at my RV because I was always with Mark. The second night I got there, Mark had invited me to come over to his girlfriend's house because she was making dinner. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to turn down a home cooked meal. I got there and Angie was an absolute delight. And they also had a couple of friends there as well that were having dinner with us. So when I found out that this was a crawfish boil with corn and sausage and crawfish, and it was just absolutely amazing. I loved it. Just, I don't know, that feeling of just being near family. They felt like my family, like I was meant to be there. And obviously I was meant to be there because I was there. But it just felt amazing. It felt just, if you've ever met someone for the first time and you just instantly clicked and they just became like really dear to you, and like you just felt that sense of family with them. That's how I was with Mark and Angie and Angie's kids, her 2 little girls. Just amazing, just absolutely amazing. And I was so grateful that I took that opportunity. Truth be told, I felt a little bit nervous because this is the first time I had met Mark in person, even though he was, I had spent, several days with him over a 3-month period or a 9-month period. But it just, I don't know. I was like, yeah, I better go. I felt a little bit like I was intruding, but I didn't want to turn him down. I didn't want to say no. So I ended up going, and man, I am so glad I did, because the next few days after that were absolutely amazing. Angie and Mark and I hung out actually quite a bit. We did a Korean barbecue one night, which was super cool. They had bought a hibachi grill, and we did some Korean barbecue and just sat out there, watched the June bugs come in. It just felt really good. It felt like home. It felt like family. And that is something that you kind of miss being out on the road all the time, is you get these little glimpses of family, but or not necessarily family, but you get these glimpses from other people around you. If they invite you over to have a beer with them or to barbecue with them, all that stuff is awesome, and it feels really good, and you're all having fun around a barbecue pit, and everybody's got their RVs and their trailers, and that's really cool. But what I experienced with Mark and Angie was nothing short of just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So it felt so good. Now, we ended up going to Galveston a few days later, and that was really a really cool experience. And I know, Angie, if you're watching right now, it was really neat. You actually pushed Mark and I outside our comfort zone. We were just content just being there and enjoying the scenery. But Angie challenged us a little bit. She wanted to go chase after a big flock of seagulls. So we did a little video of her chasing after the flock of seagulls. And then she came and told Mark and I that we had to do it. So we had to take turns doing it. And it was so awesome. Just sneaking up on those seagulls. I felt like I was a kid again. And I ran into that big old flock of seagulls, and they took off and they were flying around. It was so awesome. Mark did the same thing. And it just made me feel like a kid again. It made me feel good. And so thank you, Angie, for pushing Mark and I outside of our old man boundaries and really challenging us. So that was, man, it was so cool. I just had such a great time. Now, after all this, Friday night, I was supposed to meet up with some friends of mine that I had met online in a mobile game, Bill and Dahlia. And we became really good friends, through that, because we'd play online. I don't play very often, but when I do, I go on there and we chit chat, and it's a good time. I love those two. We went to a place called Voodoo's. That was super cool. I felt like I was just going to be outside of my element, going to like a dance club style, but no, it was just incredible. I had a great time. There were several people there, roughly around my age, and Dal and Bill, they're roughly around my age. We just had some fun dancing. Dal went over and was dancing on a pole and just owning the stage. And Bill and I were just back there having a ball, and we had a couple of beers, or a couple of drinks, not beers, but we had a couple of drinks. Just super awesome.
All right, here we go. Video time. Woo! Where's Bill? Bill's in there. Bill's in there.
And I'm covering up the camera too. Yeah.
I'm so glad that I was able to take the time to meet up with them and really get to know them for the very first time. So very, very cool. I am going to miss, because obviously I'm doing this after the fact, but I miss Houston. I miss that feeling. I miss being around Mark and Angie and Bill and Dahlia, and just being, that energy, the absolute just incredible energy that I get from those guys. I felt like I was home. I haven't felt like that in a long time. I haven't even felt like that when I was in California living there for 12 years. I felt like I was home. you can't replace that. So Houston, I will be back. And actually, I'm not going to share this with you. Look, I want to share with you guys everything, but I'm not going to share this one little thing with you about my trip plans for next year. Some of you already know because I've already shared it with a few, but oh, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to do it. Next year, Freedom Tour 23. You know, this is my grand plan, right? And as plans go, I thought I was going to be back in California by July of this year. It turns out that the United States is pretty darn big, and it's going to take me a little bit longer than July to get back there. I'm not going to be rolling in until probably November or December. Who knows? But Freedom Tour 23, Mark and I are going to do this one together. And the way that we're going to do it is by sea. All of this Freedom Tour 22 is in the United States, all on land, but Freedom Tour 23 is going to be all by sea. So let me show you. Here's Houston, and I'm going to pick up the boat in Houston, and Mark, obviously, and we're going to come down all the way, and you can't see here because I don't have Central and South America here, but we're going to go down Central America, cross over the Panama Canal, come back up the West Coast, all the way up, and we might go as far as Alaska. It depends on timing. Going by boat is much slower, but you know, we can actually cover more ground because we can drop anchor, sleep for the night, and then continue on. So it's a little bit different. So I don't know what that looks like yet. I've never done anything like this. But then what we're going to do is we're going to come back down the West Coast, go back down the Panama Canal, come back over into the Gulf of Mexico, and then continue on. And we're going to find some place in Florida where we can stop and drop that boat off and turn it into an Airbnb. That's the plan. That is the grand plan. We'll see what happens. Mark has to sign off on that, obviously. But there's other boats in Houston Harbor that are in these different marinas that have gone through either hurricane damage or they've been abandoned. I'm trying to get a lead on those so that I can possibly do a purchase on those. The goal is to have 5 or 6 different boats at marinas that are fully equipped with shore power, which is the power that comes into the boat, along with a gym and a swimming pool, kind of like, you know, a resort style marina where people can go and they can just stay on the water. They can do an Airbnb on the water. So I'm super pumped about that. That is fantastic. I'm sure someone's doing it. I just don't know who. But be it as it may, this is going to be something that Mark and I are going to do together. It's going to be super awesome. And I'm really looking forward to that. But we got to take that boat out for a test drive first and check out Freedom Tour 23 up and down the West Coast into the Gulf, over the Panama Canal. It's just going to be off the hook. So I'm really excited about that. Again, I am going to miss Houston. Houston felt like home to me. It felt good. And it wasn't because of the city. It wasn't because of the marina. It wasn't because of the boat. It was because of the people that I came in contact with and developed those connections with. So I'll be back, Houston, I promise. All right, so my last and final stop through my little journey into Texas is Frisco, Texas. And the reason I stopped here was because I have 2 very, very good friends that I had met through another program. We bonded, and these ladies are just incredible. They've been through a lot. They've really, really leveled up their businesses over the past, I want to say 9 months to a year, just doing incredible things. And so I wanted to meet up with them because we had never met in person, only virtually online through another program that we were both in. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be in this area. I want to stop and visit them before I head on up to Oklahoma. So I did. I stopped in Frisco, Texas, and I ended up staying at this really nice RV park called the Hidden Cove RV Park and Marina. And it was gorgeous out there because I was right there next to the lake. I wasn't right on the water. but I was right there next to the lake. They have, I mean, during the summer, because, you know, obviously this is in April, so it's not nearly as active, but it's a beautiful, beautiful lake right there in Frisco. And I can see why this is a hugely, hugely popular place to go to during the summer, because there's all kinds of water sports that they do out there. Hidden Cove has a really nice marina and a restaurant at the end of the dock that they, in a store. They have a little store down there too, which is really cool. I went in there, I talked to the guy for a little bit. Everything was pretty much closed down with the exception of the store, but they rent kayaks and canoes and they do all kinds of water sports. And it's just a huge, huge place to go during the summertime. So it was really nice. It was super quiet. And I'll go ahead and leave some information down below. So if you're ever in Frisco, Texas, and you want a beautiful, beautiful place to stay, then Hidden Cove is where you want to go. It was very secluded. It was out there kind of, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere, but it was far enough from town that you were only 15 minutes to a Walmart or a big store like that, but you weren't so close to town, and you were actually kind of hidden back behind some of the housing developments that there's not a lot of traffic there, super quiet. The only thing that wasn't quiet was turkeys. I had wild turkeys walking right through my campsite. And there were a number of times when I tried to get video of them, but it was very, very difficult because they were very fast. But I remember waking up the very first morning and I heard gobble, gobble, gobble. I was like, what is that noise? Is someone, playing a sound, or they have their music going or something? I didn't know what it was. And I looked outside, and right below my window in my bedroom was 3 turkeys just perched right below my window, right next to my trailer. And so I started moving around. I was like, where's my phone? Where's my phone? I want to video this. Unfortunately, I didn't get a good video of them because they started taking off before I could really get to them. So I wanted to open up my trailer door and then do like a really nice video, but they knew better. They needed to get out of there. But it was cool. I've never seen a wild turkey like that just wandering around a campground. When I was living up in Nevada, I had gone turkey hunting a few times, never saw anything, but just to see them in the wild right there where I was at, super cool. That was awesome. And it was such an experience. Now, probably people around these parts, in Texas and going all the way into the East Coast, they've probably seen plenty of turkeys just running around. Over on the West Coast, we constantly see deer running around all over the place. And over there, they see turkeys running around all over the place. And I imagine they probably see some deer too. But so that was really such an enjoyable experience. I had a great time. And one day I met up with Heather and Keely for lunch. We went to a golf club, or what do they call those? It's a golf club resort where Heather is a member. And we sat there and we had lunch and we talked over things, and they asked me what I was doing and I asked them what they were doing. And it was such a great time just sitting there and chit-chatting with them. And unfortunately it was short because everybody's so busy, but I did get some time with them before I left there. And so I'm so grateful for that. Heather and Keely, if you guys are watching, it was such a pleasure meeting up with you guys and just really having a great conversation. So that was it. I mean, that was a lot. You're probably watching this video thinking, oh my gosh, it's been an hour or close to an hour. And man, Texas is a big state. So I figured you needed a big video. But going forward, just so you know, and I was going to announce this in the last one, but I didn't get to it. Going forward, I'm going to be making my videos much shorter. In other words, I'm not going to be doing an entire state. I'm just going to show you guys what is really cool about some of the places that I'm staying. And I probably won't do a video for every location. I at least want to do one for every state, just because, I don't know, it's kind of cool. But I want to show you like the really cool spots of the U.S. and not necessarily all the smaller towns. But I tell you what, everywhere that I've gone, every town that I've stopped in, every trailer park or every resort that I've stayed at, I've always found something that was just incredible. It just opened up my mind, and it allowed me to really admire the beauty that was around me every place that I went. And so, you know, I'm super grateful for this opportunity, for this trip. I'm loving making these videos for you, and I hope that you're enjoying them as well. So make sure that you subscribe, leave me a comment down below. I may not get to the comments immediately, but I usually get to them within about 24 hours. I am human, and I do make mistakes, and sometimes I miss them. So please don't stop leaving comments. Keep leaving comments. I love seeing all the comments, and I want to know what it is that you would like to see when I do my videos. What interests you? So leave me a comment down below. Let me know. Subscribe, click the bell, reach out to me. I love hearing from people. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. It took me a while to get it out there, but I hope that it is of some quality. I hope that it is some value to you. And I just really enjoyed my time in Texas. So until I get there to the next state, which is Oklahoma, I'll see you then.